All right. I'm going to just do it through the actual live one instead of the event because it's not going to let me show everything the way that I wanted to. So hopefully you guys can join me back here on the actual live stream section of it instead of the event that I created. So I'm sorry for any confusion that's caused. So I'll wait a couple minutes till you guys all join back in here, and then we'll get started because this should actually work better on this end. All right. Maddie, what's up? Are you still hanging around? Are you going to hang out on the stream tonight? Or did you just stop by and do a little drive-by? Little pop in and out. Can you type now? Yeah, you can type now. Is it working for you? Sweet. You want to do an edible stream sometime soon? What do you mean? Like, what do you want to do on that kind of stream? I don't know. But anyway, we'll get started here now that you guys are back onto the stream. This is the one that I actually put the link to on all my social networks, so it just makes sense that I might as well stream on here. Yeah, Ghost, this is going to be the best spot to watch it. Yeah, this is the chat that we're going to use, so that way I can keep track of what you guys are saying and everything. So, sorry about any of the confusion. Edible undies? What are you talking about, Jeanette? Is the chat even working on this thing so we can embed it on the screen? If not, it's not even that big of a deal because it's going to be embedded on the actual stream anyway. Just not on the screen itself. Yeah, it doesn't show up for me on here. It's okay. Probably the other one works though. Let's see. Oh, I don't even have it on here. See, this one might work. Let's see. Maybe if I enabled it. Let's see if that pops up on the screen. If it does, we'll use that one. If not, whatever. Nope, screw it. We're not doing the chat on the screen. We're going to leave it without. Yojo IGKT. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Maddie. Yeah, is Jeanette cucking you? Sorry, Jaka. I transferred over to this stream because this is the link that I put out on all the social networks, so it just makes more sense for me to stream on this side. I just figured I'd wait a couple minutes so you guys all jumped over from the other stream so you can come here and hang out. Alright, so we'll get started here. Let me pull up my notepad as well, because I got all my notes on here and stuff. Alright, so how are you guys doing tonight? I know that I started mentioning it on the other stream, but I'll mention it here again. So just in case you guys missed out on that. For any of you who are new here and new to watching my channel, I'm Dro. How's it going? I have a Wolfdog who's upstairs, probably howling right now. I don't know if she stopped. Let's see. Yeah, I don't hear her howling anymore, but you'll probably hear her at some point. I've done a lot of videos on my channel, and most of you who already follow me have seen Luna, and maybe some of the other animals that I've worked with in the past as well. I've worked with foxes, I've worked with big cats, I've worked with a lot of lizards and snakes and lots of cool bugs, all sorts of stuff. So in the years of working with all these animals, you know, like I've gotten to learn a lot of things. And one of the main things that I see all the time is that a lot of people just go out and say, oh, they're so cute, or oh, that animal's so cool, I'm going to get one for myself. And they don't really understand anything about the animal. They have no idea what that animal's capable of doing. And then you see a lot of bad things happen and animals being put down and, you know, just the whole horrible side about exotic pet ownership. And for those of you who may not be familiar with them, wolf dogs are actual wolves that are mixed with domesticated dogs. So what you'll find is a lot of times people will breed in like a husky or a Malamute with a wolf, and that's how you get wolf dogs. Luna happens to be a German Shepherd mix, but she's a lower mid content, which is a whole other discussion on its own. I'll get into that later, but she is mostly dog, so she's looks more German Shepherdy at times, but like during the winter when she grows out her coat, she looks a lot more wolfy, and a lot of people will actually recognize her as a wolf and not even think that she's a dog in any capacity. But she does not act like a wolf. It would be way harder for me to keep her inside the house if that were the case, so I got really lucky with the fact that she's not as wolfy as some wolf dogs are. But I have been around wolf dogs that are super wolfy and still really closely connected and wild, and they are incredibly difficult to be around because they're crazy. That's the easiest way to put it. And a lot of people just think that, oh, it's like a dog, you know, I'll just put it in my backyard. Oh, hey Liv, what's up? Thanks for joining in on the chat, and I appreciate the $10 donation. Thank you, that means a lot to me. So, as I was saying, like a lot of people will think that this is like a dog. You can just go out and adopt one, put it out in your backyard, and you're good to go. That's it. You're gonna play fetch with it. It's gonna follow you around, and that's it. It doesn't work that way at all. So, if you think about it in the essence of like taking any wild animal out of the wild, a bear or a lion or a tiger, and putting it in your house. Now, you can imagine that animal is going to be trying to get out. It's going to be ruining furniture and destroying all your stuff. They can get agitated and maybe even attack someone if that happens. There's all these possibilities, right? And that's why a lot of people are like, you have to have a permit in this area to own a tiger or a lion, or you know, some certain kinds of licensing for these animals because they can be dangerous. And there's a reason for that. You know, they don't make you go out and get a permit for, you know, a golden retriever. There's a reason for that, right? So you get these dogs that are bred to be more wild because you're breeding the wolf back into it. And then you got to understand that there's a lot that comes with that. You've got, like Jacob, like you're mentioning here, an animal with killer instinct. And you're saying it lacks fear, but it really depends. Like, these animals don't lack fear, and that's what causes issues with them. Renee, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate it. Definitely helps us keep going with the channel, so thank you so much. So the reason why I say that wolf dogs are they're not fearless at all. They're actually pretty fearful. If Luna comes out here right now and I hold up a broomstick, she goes running the other way. She's actually really scared of anything that's like spiky or long, like a broomstick or a branch or anything like that. With wolf dogs, there's that inherent fear that keeps them alive in the wild, and it can cause for some really hairy situations. Like some wolf dogs that are higher content, if you back them into a corner, you have the potential that they're going to lunge at you because they're scared, you know, and it's part of that fear that keeps them alive in the wild. Otherwise, they would just walk up to a bear or a human being that's holding a gun and happens to just shoot it. So they have to have that in the wild. That's what keeps them being wolfy and the top of a lot of the food chain in that sense. One of the things that I wrote here just to kind of start out with is, you know, they're still pretty wild. They're primitive, and you can't really tame them because of this. With Luna, she listens to commands. I'm able to train her to sit and roll over and stuff like that. You know, like basic training stuff. I can tell her to stay, and she'll stay, but only to a certain point, right? Like, if I have a treat or a piece of chicken or something in my hand that she really wants, and I tell her to stay on the couch, and she goes and she lays down and she stays, that's great. She's acting like a dog, right? But at any moment, she's going to decide, like, okay, I don't want to stay anymore. And she comes running towards you to come grab the food or whatever. And not even in, like, a mean capacity or anything, just, you know, like any dog. But it's more so like you're training a wild animal, like a zoo animal or something. Like if you were going to train a lion to sit or a tiger to sit. I'm using this as an example, but wolf dogs are definitely not as crazy as a pet as something like a lion or a tiger. So don't make that correlation like wolf dogs are that crazy. They're a lot more, or sorry, I should say they're a lot easier to tame than an animal like that. But when you say tame, it's not fully tame like a golden retriever or a pug, you know, that is going to listen to your every command and follow you everywhere and do whatever you say. An animal like this, if you put them outside, they're gonna run off, and if they see an animal, they're gonna chase it, and no matter how many times you call it or go chasing after it, it's just gonna keep running. So it's still a wild animal in that sense, right? Hey, Jacob Smith, I appreciate it. Thank you. I see you say, I seriously love your channel. Stay awesome. Luna is super pretty. Yeah, she's a beautiful animal. She's definitely a handful, though. I'll say that much. So, with that said, you know, you can't really tame them like you would with certain animals. They do what they want to do most of the time, and you can get away with training them only to a certain amount, right? And depending on the generation of wolf dog will also depend how much you can really train them. If it's an animal that, you know, the mother or father was 100% wolf, and then you have a dog that is the other side, you know, whether you got like one that's a wolf, one that's a dog, and you got that close of a mix to a wild animal, you're gonna have way more problems with them when it comes to how skittish they are, how much they don't listen to you, and everything like that. So when you have an animal that's further removed from a wolf, you get a dog, right? I mean, that's how we got dogs to begin with, is they were wolves that for many, many, many years were bred to do specific tasks, and that's why we have all these different breeds. So you've got, now you've got people that are breeding the wolf back in, and you get, you know, all that skittishness again, and they look awesome, but then they've got, you know, this huge downside and negative side to them where you can't just like have a regular job where you leave the house all day and let them run around, because they're going to destroy everything. They're going to get bored. They're super smart animals. And this happens too, what you see it with like Malamutes and Huskies and German Shepherds and all these dog breeds that are closer to wolves. You're going to get an animal that's a lot crazier growing up. But, you know, that the good side to all of that is around 5 or 6 years old, which is around the age she is now. She just turned 5. You get them to calm down a lot more. They start understanding you a lot more and how it is to live with you. So she listens a lot better, and she doesn't destroy as many things. But if I had an animal that was a higher content, where the mom was a wolf and the dad was a dog, I wouldn't even be able to leave her in my house at all by herself. I would have to have somebody constantly there watching her, or lock her up in a kennel, or have a large enough yard that's fenced in, you know, so that they can live as a wild animal. And that causes a lot of other problems too, and I'll get to that. So these are animals that are incredibly intelligent, right? And they're super active. So you're going to have an animal that wants to be outside running around and playing all the time, or, you know, going for long walks. And when I mean long walks, I mean I've gone up to the top of mountains with her to where like my watch will say we climbed over 10,000 feet and she's not tired. By the time we get home, like, she would still be running around crazy, wanting to play and, you know, bothering the cats and everything else. So you would think that after a hike that long and putting out that much energy climbing up and down mountains that she would be tired and just want to go to bed. But it's the complete opposite. She still has energy and she wants to play. I mean, yeah, granted, eventually she'll crash out, and when she does, it's for a long time, way longer than if she's just sitting at home all day. And that makes her a lot easier to deal with too. So before you know, like, people who contact me and they're like, oh yeah, I want to get an animal like this, the first thing I start asking about is, like, where do you work? What kind of job do you have? What do you do for a living? Because if you go to a job that's a 9 to 5 or whatever and you're gone most of the day, this animal's going to get super bored, and because they're intelligent, they're going to want to get into everything. If you saw the thumbnail for this video, it was Luna on a couch, a leather couch that I had, that was completely exploded with fluff all over the place. I did a video about it on my channel. You guys can go back and find it. But what happened was we were gone at the salon because I was working at the salon at the time, and there was a big kennel that we had for her in the basement because we still couldn't leave her alone in the house by herself. I had Scout there as well, and I had to worry about whether or not she was going to try and get at Scout, because during the daytime I would let him run around the house, and then when I came home I would let her out to run around, and he would be in his room. So with Luna, she figured out that there was a button on top of the cage, and she would watch me, like, every once in a while whenever I had to clean everything out. I would hit that button and the cage would come apart, and I'd be able to, you know, clean everything out, put it back together. She realized that the button up there was the button to release it, and while I was not home, she jumped up and hit it with her paw, and the whole cage came apart, and she was able to get out. And I mean, if you've seen this kennel, it's not like a little kennel. It's a kennel that, like, was the size of a room. It was, I think, 8 by 10 or 10 by 10 or something like that. So while she was in the house running around free, she decided that she was going to rip apart the couch. And this comes from the anxiety of no one being home and wanting to go out and do something or play or whatever. So then she just starts getting nervous, and she started tearing at the couch. And being that it's leather, it was instinctually there for her to just rip it apart and play with the stuff inside. So it was like all over the place. It went kind of crazy. And that happened another time too, where, like, we were gone for less than 5 minutes to walk someone out to their car from the house, and she shredded the rest of the couch. Like, after she had already put a hole in it that one time, that was the time where I decided the couch had to go and we had to get a new one. Because if you walk outside of the house, even for 5 minutes, and they see you walk outside, they're gonna start trying to find something to destroy, because it's like, how do I get their attention to come back? And they realize growing up that if they destroy something or they pee on something or poop on something, that you're going to run to go clean it up or take it from them. And they get this instant attention, and they kind of just learn, because they're so smart, that if they do something messed up, it's an easy way to get your attention. So if you leave the house for 5 minutes, you have to worry about them just ripping into something in hopes that you're going to come back and try to correct them or be there with them. So, excuse me. Dogs obviously do this kind of stuff too. This isn't just something that wolf dogs do, especially puppies. They do this, but I mean, imagine an animal that's this size and this smart. You know, it's almost like, I tell people that it's like having a puppy tenfold for 5 to 6 years, as opposed to like a dog, where after the first year they start to calm down and they reach maturity. They start to get to know how it is to live with you. With wolf dogs, they're like still, you know, 4 or 5 year old huge animal that wants to jump on your counter and jump on top of the stove or grab something from the top of your fridge because they can. And no matter how many times you tell them no, they're incredibly stubborn, and they say, this is what I have in my mind, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and that's it. And that's what makes it, you know, even more difficult to be with them. And that brings me to another thing. You know, if you're deciding that you want to get a wolf dog as a pet, I always tell everybody, go work with them first. And by working with them, I mean find somebody who has wolf dogs that you know nearby, or someone that you can go visit that has one. Go actually hang out with them, see how the animal interacts with you as a stranger, see how the animal interacts with them, being that they live with the person, and ask them to feed the animal in front of you and to let you clean up after them. So yeah, that means going over to a friend's house or you know, a wildlife sanctuary that has wolf dogs and tell them, yeah, I want to clean up your wolf poop for you, and learn what it's like to clean up the enclosures and, you know, feed them and change their water out. And you'll see, like, the second you walk into the enclosure, they're trying to grab something off of you, like if you're wearing a hat or some gloves, they're going to try and rip them off you and run away with them, especially the higher content ones. They might pee on you when you walk in there, and a lot of them, when they get overly excited, will just start to poop as well, no matter where they are. So even if they're inside your house, if they get excited, they're just going to poop or pee, and there's nothing you can do about that. You can't train that out of them. It's a part of them still being close to a wild animal like that. So you go to these places, you ask them, you know, if you can help out in taking care of the animals, because that's the only way that you're really going to know what these animals are like. I can take Luna out and people can meet her like at, you know, PetSmart or wherever, and they're just like, they want to pet her, they want you know, to get down, give her kisses on the face or whatever, and I know Luna's good with that. You know, she's grown up around people constantly. She's always been super friendly with everyone and not skittish with people. So I try to explain to people, yeah, like, you can pet them and play with them and all this stuff. You can get to know them as an animal outside, like with me walking her, but that's nothing what it's like when she's inside of a house. So you want to ask these people to let you actually interact with them where they're in their habitat, in their home, in their, you know, whatever their territory is, because they're going to act like a different animal. So just because you may have seen Luna out, you know, in public, and you see that she's a nice animal and she's playing with you and wagging her tail, that's not what it's like 100% of the time. So she's got two parts of her. She's got her doggy side, which is a lot of the times when she meets new people, when she's inside of the house. But as soon as she goes outside the house, and we're either even in the backyard or out in public when we're hiking on trails, she becomes more of a wild animal. And by this I mean, if she sees another dog or another animal walking by, she wants to lunge at it, you know, at no matter what. And if you watch my older videos, she grew up around other dogs and cats and, you know, other animals. Like, I never kept her away from other animals growing up, which is something you see with dogs. Like, when dogs aren't socialized, they their instincts of their prey drive are way more heightened than if you were to bring up a dog around other animals. But with wolf dogs, it doesn't seem to really matter. Like, you can bring them up with other animals, and once they hit maturity, if it's not an animal that's around all the time, they still want to go after it and kill it. It's just part of their instinct. It's how they are. So imagine you have a wolf dog in your backyard and it escapes, and your neighbor lets their dog out or their cat out. Your wolf dog is going to go eat that animal and grab it. Higher contents, if they see a little kid running, they might go after the little kid and knock it down and hurt it by accident. You know, you don't want that kind of stuff to happen. And you have to realize that with an animal like this, there are these differences from dogs. And even though dogs do show these behaviors, like I said, it's it's heightened with wolf dogs. Their instincts are way closer to the wild counterpart than anything else. And I see you mentioned here in the chat about them wolf dogs grabbing other people's pets or killing other people's animals, killing little kids. There was recently a news article that came out of I guess a couple that had wolf dogs and happened to leave it inside while they were bringing in groceries or something, and the wolf dog ended up killing the kid. And this can happen with a dog, right? I mean, it's happened with pit bulls killing children and German shepherds, and it's not just a wolf dog thing. But when you have an animal that has these heightened prey drives and instincts, you have to be super cautious. So I always recommend that if you're thinking about getting one and you have kids, make sure that the kids are, one, strong enough and big enough to, you know, push this wolf dog away if they need to, or call for help, because they might get knocked down at some point, even play fighting, and get hurt and need the assistance of an adult. And if you think about it, with like an infant isn't going to be able to protect themselves. So like my suggestion is never leave them alone with an infant. Never leave them alone with, you know, somebody else's animal. Or if you have like a bunny rabbit out in a cage or something and you decide, oh, I'm just going to go to the bathroom really quick. Bad decision around a wolf dog, because they're going to figure out how to get to it no matter what. And I have noticed that they act a little different when you're not around. And I think I might do some videos where I put the camera on Luna and leave the house and then show you guys how she actually acts, because there are younger people who watch my channel who are probably anywhere from 10 to 15 years old who have contacted me and said they're talking their parents into getting a wolf dog, and their parents agreed and they're gonna get one. And then I'm like, I start thinking, do you even know if you have the ability to hold one? When you walk an animal like this, if any of you guys have even walked animals like huskies or German shepherds or any of these northern breeds, even pit bulls, I mention them because they're, you know, super strong animals. Put it in the hands of a 15-year-old and see if they can hold that animal. A wolf dog is stronger most of the time. Imagine your child's outside walking this animal, and it sees another dog walk by, and the little dog's yapping away trying to grab at the wolf dog, and the wolf dog decides, I'm gonna go grab that dog. And you have adults who have a hard time holding back wolf dogs, and you think that's gonna be okay with a teenager or, you know, someone even younger. It's a bad idea. So like, definitely go out and work with these animals first, because then you can get an idea of how strong they are, whether or not you can hold one, you know, and whether or not you can walk one. You know, ask them, hey, put a harness on this dog and let me walk it outside or around the enclosure, so you can get an idea of what it's really like, because it's not like walking a yellow lab. Like you're saying there, you couldn't even control a yellow lab, let alone a wolf dog. Yeah, you know, that's the thing, like they're super strong and smart. So when Luna was younger, one of the problems I had with her was she started figuring out how to get out of her harness. So she would just like pull back with her arms forward, so it would just come off like a t-shirt. And there were a couple times where she took off around the neighborhood running around, and you know, I laugh about it now because it was pretty funny to see how smart she was to do that. But then over the years of living with her, I started learning, you know, her tricks and the things that she has figured out, so I'm able to actually counteract that. Like one of our harnesses, I actually had to put a piece of metal chain around on the bottom of her chest that I added myself, because she realized that she could put her jaw underneath that part of the harness and she would chew right through it in like a matter of a minute, or less than a minute, I should say. And if you just turn around for a second, she's out of her harness. So I definitely had to fix that. and make her something that was a lot safer. Because, I mean, again, imagine if we're out hiking and she goes after somebody else's animal. You know, that's on me, because it's my job to control her as my pet. And for somebody who's a teenager or younger, how are you going to control an animal like that when it decides it's going to go and it's going to grab whatever it wants? I've actually had to jump off the side of a mountain once with her where, you know, obviously the ledge was there, but it was extremely steep. And she was trying to go at an animal that was not on a leash. The lady decided she was going to go hiking with her dog without it being on a harness or anything. And it started coming at Luna. And of course, her dog was probably going to be friendly and not do anything, but Luna's not friendly. So it wasn't okay for this lady's dog to just come into Luna's face, because if she had grabbed that animal or the woman, it would have been on me. It would have been my fault, and Luna, you know, would possibly be put down just because the sheer fact that she did that. You know, whether or not she scratched someone or whatever. There's this whole thing, and I don't know the whole legality of it, so I'm not going to get into detail about it, but what I'm told is that if your wolf dog bites someone or so much as scratches somebody that complains about it, they have to check the animal for rabies. And the only way to do that is to check the brain, so they have to actually cut your dog's head off in order to check it for rabies, which means putting your dog down if it bites somebody. So that's like a huge no-no, right? Like, you don't want to be somebody who, I guess, goes out and adopts an animal like this, who is already looked down upon and frowned upon as a pet, and, you know, give it to your child to go walking with it out on the street without your supervision, because if they let it go by accident and it grabs somebody, this is what's going to happen. And it's the reality of these of owning these animals. And if you just do a quick Google search and you check for that, I guarantee you will find a lot of instances where people's dogs got taken away and put down for really incredibly stupid reasons that could have been avoided. So these are all things you have to think about, right? You're no longer just adopting a dog, you're adopting something that's a liability. And you have to make the right decision. And just because they're cool and you want to put them in your apartment, you know, that's not the right way to go about it. And I did a video about this, you know, like, what was it, 2 years ago? The Wolfdogs video that I did of you know, So You Want a Wolfdog is what I titled it. And when I went down, you know, like, I get comments still on that video all the time. It's one of my most viewed videos, and I get people commenting constantly just about the fact that I'm wearing makeup or that I had my hat sideways or something ridiculous like that. Not many people actually comment on the content of the video, which is me trying to warn you that you have to really take the responsibility to not just do research. Like, I have this whole thing in my past where I remember working in the pet shops and people constantly saying, research, always research, research is key. But I don't think research is the best thing for owning an animal like a wolf dog or a fox or even some of the bigger cats that are exotics. I think experience is probably key, right? The experience of working with these animals and being around them and learning their mannerisms, I think that's way more important. I think being around the animals and knowing how to interact with them in really awkward situations is better than any amount of research you can do, because you can look them up all day. You can watch my videos, you can watch other people's videos, and you can see them interacting in a home setting or eating, but you're never really going to know what it's like. You know, there's really stupid little things that might happen, like when Luna first started shedding and she had big chunks of fur coming off of her and it was leaving these sores on her skin. I was kind of like, oh, well, at least I've seen this before. I know what this issue is. So I talked to the breeder, Luna's breeder, who I got her from, and I asked what the best solution was to fix the hot spots on her skin. And she told me, just so you guys know, the easiest thing to do in that situation is just shave the area. So knowing what to do in that situation actually saved a lot of money as well, because I would have a normal person, I should say, would have went to the vet and freaked out about the whole situation and ended up paying hundreds of dollars, or who knows, maybe more, and been told to do all these crazy things and put your animal on medication and whatever, when something as simple as just shaving around the area helped, and it healed up within like 2 days. You know, it was just, there was no hair going up around it, keeping it dirty or anything like that. So it ended up really healing. So when you have an animal that's either an exotic pet, you know, I don't know, are wolf dogs even really considered exotic pets anymore? I don't know if I guess they're one of the more exotic dogs, right, that you can own. But being a part of a community is really important too. Like, if you do have a wolf dog, or you have an animal that you think is a wolf dog, join other wolf dog communities online. Like, I know there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join, and there's even a lot of forums online that you can join. And there's, you know, like-minded people that you can ask for advice when you have issues that are, you know, particular to to these breeds or these animals that I guess a vet may not be familiar with as much. What I've noticed is a lot of times too, there are questions or things that I've dealt with vets that they had really no idea what was going on, because the animal's an exotic animal and they never had the experience with it before. So I would turn to people that I know that have more experience than I do, people who raise the animals, breed them, and then usually I get back a response that is super easy and works and solves the problem. So that could be even behavioral things, like if there's a certain behavior that your wolf dog's doing that you don't approve of, like jumping up on the counters, or you know, ripping up the trash or a couch all the time. There's a lot of like-minded people on these forums that will give you their experience and what worked for them in order to help you. But the little things you're only going to know by working with them first. So that's why I was saying, if you want to get experience, go work with these people for a little while and ask for permission to, you know, go help clean up after them and feed them and walk them and whatever else you can. So what else can we talk about? Oh yeah, so that brings up to that whole thing when I was talking about walking them, where they can't even be loose either, right? So you can't, this is an animal that you can't really take out with you without a harness or a leash, because they will go after things with the prey drive. And knowing what to do in those situations make it really easy in comparison to if you just went out and adopted one of these animals without ever being around them. Like, I can tell now with a wolf dog, as soon as they even look at something, whether or not they're about to make an advancement to run after it, to go attack it, or if they're just trying to see what's going on, I can tell by just looking, because that's something that you get over years of experience. And the same thing I try to explain to people with the foxes. I have people ask me, how do you know the difference between whether they're happy or sad when all they do is scream really loud? And it's like, well, you can tell by years of being around them whether or not they're happy, you know, just by their mannerisms. And that makes it a lot easier for you to deal with certain situations, I guess is pretty much what I'm getting at. And there are different kinds of wolf dogs, and that's another subject I wanted to touch on. I don't even know how many, to be honest. There's a lot. There's the Czech wolf dogs, there's the German Shepherd mixes like Luna is, there's Husky mixes, there's Malamute mixes. I've seen even here, hang on, let me pull something up here. Oh yeah, there's that Talamascan, or Tamascan, is that how you say it? Yeah, the Tamascan. I've never actually been around those myself, so I don't know anything about the Tamascans, but that's another type, you know, that is considered, is in that range of having an animal that looks like a wolf, but isn't fully a wolf. Blue Bay Shepherds is another one. And actually the breeder who I got Luna from is one of the creators of the Blue Bay Shepherd. Here she comes. I hear her. Here she is. She's coming up here behind me. Hey, Luna, what's going on? Are you here to say hi to the stream? Come here. She probably wants to go outside now. Hey, we made it pretty far. How long has it been? Almost 40 minutes, and before she came over to come harass me. What's up, Luna? What you want? Let me go open the door for her to let her out. And I will be right back. I'm back. All right, let me pull this back up here. So I'm only going to go on for another few minutes or so, and then I will take questions from you guys if you have any questions that you want to ask about Luna, about Wolfdogs in general, or anything else. Oh my god, let me pull up this picture here to show you guys. This is really funny. I gotta... Here, give me one moment. We can switch this over here. A wolf corgi? What? Wolf corgi? That is one silly looking dog. A Swedish Valhund? How do you say that? I don't even know how to say that. Oh my god, that is so adorable though. Is that not the cutest thing in the world? Jeez. Okay, before we get into all this though, because I'll show you a couple pictures and all that stuff and share it with you guys, but in the meantime, anyway, let me just get back to what we were talking about so that I can finish up here with all my notes that I had. Okay, so shedding. That was another thing I wanted to talk about. Wolfdogs shed like crazy twice a year. Right now, if I go one day without just completely sweeping my house, I have like these mounds of fur that the next time that I sweep, you'll just see these big ball of fur. That it's crazy. My backyard right now, I have these big patches of fur that are all over on the grass because every day I got to go out there with either a shedding blade or one of those combs with the teeth to get all of that loose fur out because she's shedding her winter coat. Even with like higher content Wolfdogs too, it's way easier. They come off in patches. Like you can almost like peel it back and remove all of just big patches of fur. It's crazy. So this is an animal that is gonna shed a lot. They get really thick coats in the winter, and especially if you live somewhere where it gets cold in the winter and it snows and everything, they actually grow a longer coat. And I didn't know this about them. Somebody actually told me that like with Luna, when I was living in Florida, her coat was actually pretty short, and even in the winter it didn't get super thick, even though it did thicken a little bit. But I noticed when I moved up north to where it snows a lot, her coat is like double the size what it used to be. It's like her body just knows to put out the extra fur at the end of the year so that she can protect herself from these the cold weather. When I first moved up north, her coat was still kind of short, and I could tell she would go outside and still like shiver a bit. But that next winter, you better believe her coat was like super thick in comparison. So that's another thing. If you have a problem with having an animal that leaves its fur all over your clothes and bed and everything else, this isn't an animal for you because there's gonna be fur everywhere. I already touched on, let's see, work from home, if you working from home is probably the best thing, because that way you can be with the animal. You don't have to worry about them destroying your things or having to lock them up while you're gone. Like I mentioned, there's problems that come up with that as well. Having more than one animal for company. That's a question that always comes up, is whether or not you should get 2 wolf dogs instead of 1. The people that I know that have more than 1 wolf dog are complete homebodies, never go anywhere, and that's something that you have to be committed to if you decide to have more than 1, for sure, because they will get together and plot against you. I promise. That's what they do. They're gonna I think that, yes, there should be other animals around. For if you have a dog at all, you should really not just have it by itself, right? They do act different when you're by yourself with a dog versus a dog that grows up with another dog. They do act more wild. So if you get a wolf dog and then, you know, you are having it grow up with a bunch of other wolf dogs, you're going to have an animal that acts more wild than if you were to raise it inside your home by yourself. But like I said, they get they get bored, and they want to destroy things, and it's not even just destroying because they want to be destructive. It's just they're curious. They want to get into things. They want to put their mouth on everything and rip it apart and see what it is, what's inside. Is this something that I can eat? So having 2 of them, you have more of a wild animal. They both start doing this even more than if you were to just have 1. With Luna, she grew up around the cats, so that was kind of her her entertainment whenever she got bored, right? Like, she would run around chasing the cats or playing with them. Sometimes they would come up and swat her and run off to get her to chase. And every once in a while in my videos, you'll see me saying, like, Luna, leave him alone. Luna, leave him alone, because she starts grabbing Falcor and trying to pull him to either play with her or for whatever reasons, you know, like she does it for. And I got to yell at her to stop, because she still wants to play with them like she used to when she was a puppy, but she's huge now, so it actually ends up hurting them. So having another dog is beneficial, but you're going to have an animal that does act a bit more wild if you do. Whether it's a wolf dog or just a regular dog with a wolf dog. That wolf dog is going to act more like a wolf if you have it with another canine, let's say. Definitely somebody needs to be strong enough to hold them and interact with them and deal with them, because there are going to be times that you have to restrain them. I already touched on that. And so I see somebody here in the chat was saying, how do you tame them? I did mention in the beginning of the video about how you can't really tame them like you would a dog or a cat, but it's more like having a zoo animal that you try to tame, right? So when you work with an animal like this, any kind of negative reinforcement is a huge no-no. No smacking the dogs like to try to get it to do something. If you're trying to teach it to stop something, any kind of negative reinforcement, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you do something incorrectly, that dog is going to have that lasting impression, and it's going to cause an issue between you and that wolf dog. There's going to be mistrust there, and you better believe it. They act completely different if you are the bad guy in their eyes, and you're going to have a way harder time living with the animal, because you're going to feel like this animal wants to do nothing but ruin your life. And some of it is even out of spite, because they're so smart. I feel like they some of the things they do are out of spite because, you know, they got in trouble and you interacted with them the wrong way. And what you'll see is sometimes there's people who end up having their dogs taken away from them, or who can no longer deal with them, so they're like, screw this, I'm going to find another home, and that's that. This animal's no longer living in my home because I can't take it anymore. And then you get an animal that is being rehomed, and that whole tameness goes completely away, because now the animal goes back to being skittish, not trusting of its surroundings because it doesn't know the new people. It's scared because the interaction with that person with the last owner was negative. And then these are animals that end up getting put down because if they can't find another sanctuary or somewhere to let them live out their lives as a wild animal, they become a nuisance. They try to attack people, so they end up just putting them down. And it's a huge reason that I say, if you have a wolf dog, especially if it's your first dog and you don't know what you're doing, don't ever yell or hit the dog or do anything negative like that, because you're going to have a completely different animal, and trust me, you're going to want this animal on your side, not against you. With Luna, is if you've seen on my videos before, I will yell at her. At this point now, she will just put her ears down, and she gets scared if I even raise my voice, and she knows that she's doing something wrong. Whatever she's doing, she has to stop. Like, I was outside working on the RV yesterday. I think that was yesterday, right? I was putting back the starter on the RV, and when I came back inside, I realized that Luna had eaten my toothbrush. I forgot to close my bathroom door, and she was upset that I was outside and she couldn't be out front with me. But, you know, I didn't want to chain her up outside, so I don't have a fence in the front, so I couldn't just let her roam free. And she ended up like chewing up my toothbrush, and when I came in, the first thing I said was, I held it up and I said, "What did you do?" And she just dropped to the ground, and she knew she did something wrong, and I just told her, "Go to the room and go lay down," and she went and laid down. And this is like the best thing ever, because I don't have to do anything else. You know, if she's doing something I don't like, or I need her to leave the room, I can just grab a broomstick and she will leave the room, because she's afraid of broomsticks. I don't have to swing it at her. I don't have to, you know, threaten her with it and do anything negative. So learning other ways that aren't super negative like that to get them to listen to you, or to know that they're doing something wrong, is probably going to get you a lot further than if you're using, like, let's say, shock collars, or, you know, just trying to be aggressive physically. That doesn't work with them. And it works with some dogs. I don't recommend it, but I've seen dogs that actually will behave very, very well because they're super scared of their owner. But that doesn't make for a fun companion to have, you know? Like, if I'm going to have an animal like this, I would like it to be my companion or my friend, not just some creature that I command to do anything I want it to do. You know, that's not... for me, at least, that's not my intention for having pets. I don't want to have an animal that I just command all the time, like, do this trick, do that trick, go do this for me, go do that for me. Like, that to me that's not right anyway. If you are somebody who cares about your material items, if you're somebody who goes out and spends $1,000 on a purse, probably shouldn't own a wolf dog, because it's going to get peed on, it's going to get chewed up, it's going to get destroyed at some point. You're going to forget to leave it out, or forget and leave it out, and the animal's going to grab it, and you're going to be very upset. So if you're somebody who values your material things and you want to bring a wolf dog into your home, it's probably not the best idea. I've mentioned the reasons why previously. If you have small pets, that's probably something you need to reconsider as well. Like, I didn't actually plan to have Luna and Scout when I had my fennec fox living together. That wasn't the plan. I ended up having Scout living with my ex, who I actually got him for. Well, we got him together, but when we broke up and she moved out on her own, she ended up actually taking Scout with her, and he lived with her for about 1.5 to 2 years, I want to say, if I remember correctly. And during that time, I didn't have a dog anymore, because the dog that I used to have named Doggy, you might have seen her in my older videos, she ended up passing away of old age, and at the time I didn't have another dog or anything. So when I decided to get another dog, then I decided I was going to get a wolf dog after, you know, years of being around them in my past, working with exotic pets. I decided that I didn't want a regular dog, and I was going to get Luna. And I got lucky. You know, I ended up contacting the breeder that I knew, got lucky, and she had the exact one that I wanted. And I brought Luna home without Scout being there at all. Eventually, that ex ended up getting pregnant, so she ended up having to give me Scout back. She wasn't able to care for him anymore. So being that I'm the only other person he grew up with, I was obviously going to take him. I'm not going to let him go to some stranger's house. So I took him back to take care of him for the rest of his life. And at that point, I was in a better position to take care of him again anyway. You know, I had my own place and everything like that. So I ended up taking him back, and I had to work around having Luna. And that was very difficult because, you know, the way I treated Scout, I let him have free roam of the house. I let him, you know, out during the day. So to have an animal that could potentially eat him was a lot of work, a lot of work to keep them separated on a regular basis. This was something I had to be super conscious about all the time, whether a door was open or unlocked, or even if somebody came in behind me and shut the door, I had to go back and make sure that that door was shut all the way, because there have been times where people would go and like take a look and then not close the door all the way. Next thing you know, Luna would push the door open and I'd hear Scout screaming at her, telling her like, you better not come near me. And those moments are super scary, trust me. So if you have a small animal and you want to bring in a wolf dog, it's probably not the best idea. So I would say wait till you don't have that small animal anymore. If it, you know, once it gets too old and passes away or anything like that, then maybe consider it. Don't do it at the same time, because you're going to have an animal that's constantly trying to get at, you know, at the small pet that you have, trying to eat it, or, you know, or even just to play with it and accidentally harm it. You don't want that to happen either. So it's just not a good decision. Luckily, I never had any bad incidents happen with Luna and Scout. I did my best to keep them far apart from each other, and eventually started actually introducing them to each other, where I could be in the same room as Luna and I could sit here with him in my arms and she wouldn't even come up and try to snatch him out. But you better believe if I went out and grabbed, like, let's say a stray cat and brought it home and I had it in my arms right now, Luna would come up and snatch it right out of my arms and try to kill it instantly. But because she ended up growing up around Scout, I mean, Luna was still a puppy when I got Scout back, so she ended up kind of growing up around him, knowing that he was forbidden. She was never allowed to touch him or go near him or anything. Exercise, I've touched on that because they're so smart and they are high energy dogs, especially with Luna because she's mixed with German Shepherd, which is already a breed of working dog. I think she has some Husky in her as well. So, and you can tell this because she's got that curl to her tail sometimes. Like when she's super excited, she kind of curls it up like a Husky. And I think that exercise is obviously important, right? For any dog. You want to make sure that they're not just sitting in a house all day, because they're going to get fat, they're going to be lazy, they're going to become overweight, and it's going to shorten their lifespan. So when people say exercise, what does that mean? Like, a lot of people think that, oh, should I go out and get like a treadmill and have my dog running around on the treadmill? You could, but we're talking about wolf dogs, right? And wolf dogs are scared of anything that's kind of weird. So loud noises such as a treadmill, they're never going to get on that. They're going to be super scared of the treadmill. They're not going to want to go anywhere near it. And, oh, hey, there's a cat that just jumped on me. What's up, cat? Are you going to say hi to the stream? What's going on, Falcor? Are you coming to report on wolf dogs? He must have been downstairs. I hear his heart beating really fast. So he must have been outside with Luna and then ran back in. But yeah, so what'd you say there? Yeah, so with exercise, having an animal like this, you're going to have to bring it out for walks, for sure, no matter what. I mean, if you have hundreds of acres around your house and, you know, you have it completely fenced in and you can let these animals out to run around and... Sorry. He's being super lovey right now. He just wants attention. What are you doing? Come here. You can't sit like that. Is this what we're doing right now? Every time I stream, he's like, oh, you're talking to a camera. Let me get up and be a part of this and say, I'm the cutest one, and I'm going to take all the attention from you. It's all right. You can come say hi to everyone, Falcor. I'm sure everybody wants to see you anyway. Ew, you're drooling. You're drooling. Here, go back. We're talking about Wolfdogs here, and he drooled all over my hand. Thanks, guy. I really appreciate that. So yeah, with the exercise thing, like I said, there's times where I would take her, 10,000 feet up a mountain and back, and she would end up still being not fully exhausted. So if you don't exercise them, you're going to have all these other problems that you heard me talking about, where they become destructive and want to go outside and inside. Like, I didn't take her out today because it was actually raining a little bit earlier, and we were going to go outside, and she ended up trying to chase two squirrels that were going up and down a tree, and they were just taunting her. I think they were just chasing each other, playing, but she was going nuts, and I was like, okay, if I take her outside right now, she's just going to try and kill them. So, but she's actually fine now. And you'll get, and I'll see this in her, right? I'll see that she starts getting really just antsy from being around the house. So if I don't take her out every day, she's going to become an animal that's way harder to take care of than when I do walk her. So exercise is a really big thing. Putting her on a treadmill is never going to work. And I had a treadmill. If you watch my older videos, I had a treadmill in the house, and I remember trying at one point to see if I could get her to just step on it. But she was so scared that even if I put the leash on the harness on her and tried to get her up there, I mean, she acted like it was bloody murder. Like, she did not want to go anywhere near it, even from just hearing and knowing that when it gets turned on, it makes that weird loud sound that she doesn't like. So exercise is something that you're going to have to do on your own. It's not something that you can just, like, forever in the lifespan of this animal, just throw it outside and let it do its own thing, because it is just going to want to eat and get fat and become lazy, and then you're going to have all these problems, like I said, where their lifespan is shortened, especially if they're mixed with like German Shepherds and other dog breeds that have hip issues when they get older. If they're overweight, they're going to start having all these hip issues and leg issues and everything. And you don't want that, especially if it's an animal that, again, like, I don't know if I even mentioned this in the video yet, but they can live up to 18 years old. So this is a huge commitment for some people. You can have, imagine how much happens within a few years, let alone trying to raise an animal for 18 years. And that's a huge commitment to make, especially one that requires that much interaction and exercise and everything else that comes with it, I saw one of you guys in the chat was asking what kind of enclosure you should have for it. I mean, honestly, enclosures, I wouldn't say that if your mentality is to get a wolf dog and have an enclosure, don't do it. I don't think that wolf dogs should have enclosures, but with that said, they should have containment, and maybe that's what you meant in your question. And with containment, it's just a safe place that you can lock them up when you need to do something. So, for example, if you have maintenance people coming to do work on your house, or you have family over that have small children or small animals, or just something that you temporarily just need the animal to be in another room. If you were to just lock Luna inside of a bedroom, you better believe she's going to try and come through the wall. So they will scratch at the door, and they will throw themselves against the door, and they'll try to chew through the drywall, especially if there's any wood or anything around. They're going to try and chew through it. So you can't just lock wolf dogs in a room and expect that they're going to be in there all day with no problem. So you're going to want a safe place, like either a kennel or a yard that's properly fenced. My fence is what, like, I want to say this one is either 6 or 8 foot. My old one I think I had was 8 foot. She can actually jump up to the top of the 8-foot fence that I had and pull herself up. So if she wanted to, she probably could figure out that she could completely jump it. And luckily she hasn't. In the 5 years that I've had her, she's never once done it. So usually by the time she starts pulling herself up, her weight pulls her back down and she doesn't make it over the fence. But With that said, I've seen a lot of wolf dogs that can easily jump an 8-foot fence without even thinking twice about it. Once they learn it and they know that they can do it, they will take that running head start. They will know how to climb up with a running head start and pull themselves over if they have to. Some people that have chain link fence, they learn how to climb the fence. They'll put their feet through the little holes and they'll actually climb up. I've seen them even climb ladders. They can climb ladders with no problem. So having a large fence is definitely something that you're going to want, but also making sure that they can't climb it, that they can't jump over it. And a lot of people do this by having like a angle at the top of their fence with either, you know, chicken wire. I've seen people put hot wire. I don't really like to use hot wire like that because it ends up hurting the animal if they climb up there. But they can actually hear it too. Like if you have hot wire around your fence and for some reason it gets shorted out, they know that it's out because they can hear that it's no longer running electricity through it. And that's exactly when they're going to escape. So I would actually recommend having a safer alternative and having the correct angle up there that they can't climb through. Because if they do get up there, they're just going to have to fall back down because they can't climb on an angle. So that's definitely important. I would say at least an 8-foot fence though. That's probably the best, just to be on the safe side until you know your animal. If I had one of those short fences like I did at my house in Colorado, I couldn't ever let her outside unless she was on a harness or a leash, because if the neighbors had their dogs out, she would jump the fence and kill them in an instant. Or if an animal ran by, like let's say there were deer that were in the neighborhood, if they were running around, if she ran up to one of those deer, they were massive and they would just kick her and they could accidentally kill her. So I don't recommend getting a wolf dog if you're planning on letting it run around your backyard if you have a super low fence, because that's going to turn out to be a really, really bad thing. And somebody's animal or somebody's going to get hurt. And again, you're going to be liable for it. So don't do it. One of the last things I wanted to touch on, I did mention it a little bit, was you can't abandon these animals. They don't take well to being rehomed at all. When they're babies and they're born, a lot of people say within the first like couple of weeks, you have to have them imprinted to humans, where the humans are picking them up and maybe bottle feeding them and playing with them and interacting with them so that they have this bond with a person and know that the person who is bonding with them is the one who's going to take care of them for the rest of their lives. I don't know the exact amount of time, but I know with dogs, a lot of times they don't release dogs to their new home until I think about 3 months. They wait about 3 months and then the dog goes and gets adopted out. But with wolf dogs, you have to do it within the first month. I took Luna home at, I believe it was 4 weeks when I first went to go get her. And if you don't take them right away and they don't imprint on you, all these mannerisms of wolves that you don't like them being skittish or being aggressive towards people because they're scared, or any of these things that might pop up, can be completely avoided if they imprint on humans at a very early age. So if you have a wolf dog that's born, and let's say you have a breeder who doesn't really care about the wolf dog, they just want to sell wolf dogs and they just want to make money as fast as possible. So these people are going to have 20, 30 wolf dogs, and through the breeding season they'll have a bunch of different packs that are born, and all these little packs are not really being taken care of by humans as much. This is just a scenario I'm putting out there, right? So then you have these wolf dogs grow up within their first few months without a lot of interaction with humans, and they act way more wolfy by the time they reach their adult age than if they're going to be a dog that's imprinted on an actual human at, let's say 2 to 3 weeks of age. There's a lot of other animals that are like this too, especially when you get more on the wild spectrum of animals, anything that's considered more so wildlife. So abandoning these animals is a huge no-no, because once they imprint on you, if you put them in another home, all of the feelings of them being alone and scared in an unfamiliar area in new territory are going to come out, and they're going to completely misbehave in their new home for a very long time. And if the person doesn't have a lot of patience, this animal's just going to keep being rehomed and rehomed and rehomed. And that's why a lot of times you'll see when a wolf dog needs to be rehomed, everybody starts freaking out, like trying to find the right person to take it. Because if you put an animal that's being rehomed into just some kid's house who has never owned one before and has an apartment, you're going to have an animal that is constantly trying to go through the windows and through the walls just to get out of the house and not be around humans anymore. It's just going to want to run away and find its old home. And these animals are going to be considered messed up. And like I mentioned before, if they end up at like a pound or they're out in the streets, they either get shot or put down, just because it's almost impossible to bring them back to being more like a dog without their original owner that they imprinted with. It's like taking an animal out of its pack in the wild and it's just completely lost and doesn't know what's going on anymore. Now, this isn't the situation 100% of the time. There's a lot of times that wolf dogs get rehomed and they do well. And obviously there's always an exception to the whole situation where you'll find ones that just go completely nuts. So it's all over the spectrum, but more so than not, I hear that these animals just don't take well to being rehomed. And I've helped rehome a few from old friends of mine and stuff who adopted them and then realized, oh crap, this is a wild animal living in my house and I can't take care of it anymore. So then they contact me saying, what should I do with it? So, you know, there's all these things are things that you should really think about if you're planning on getting one. These are all based on my experiences with them. The first time I saw one, I think I was like, I want to say 16 or 17 years old. And then from then on, there were like bits and pieces of time and opportunities that I got to actually work with them and be around them before adopting one and bringing one home. And I knew what I was getting myself into, but a lot of people don't. And that's the problem, is a lot of people think that it's just going to be like a crazy dog and it's fine. Like, I'll go to work, I'll come home and I'll walk it and I'll play with it. And it's like, no, by the time you come home from work, you're going to have poop smeared into your carpet and pee all over your house and your walls are destroyed and everything else. So anyway, those are some of the points that I wanted to touch on when it comes to owning wolf dogs. I hope that I've answered most questions about them, and I'll take a few minutes to answer your questions in the chat if you're interested in having anything answered that I may not have touched on. We need to treat these animals with respect because they get a bad rep. Yep, I agree, Trey. A lot of these animals do get a bad rap from just all of these people who adopt them and don't know what they're doing, and then these animals end up either hurting somebody or getting out and escaping and causing problems, and then the animal is the one that gets labeled as the bad animal, not the person taking care of this animal that's responsible for it. So that's definitely a huge thing that I want to touch on too. Like, make sure that you're going to be completely responsible. Otherwise, you're going to give these animals more of a bad rep, and they definitely don't need that. What do you know about Blue Bay Shepherds? I know a bit about Blue Bay Shepherds. One of the things is that the whole point of Blue Bay Shepherds was this is a breed that was meant to look exactly like a wolf, but act completely like a dog. Obviously, that's what you want in a wolf dog. So after many, many years and generations of just breeding back that one baby that looked very, very much like a wolf back to the parent, or not to the parent, but to other ones as well that look more wolfy, you end up getting an animal which is the Blue Bay Shepherd, which is pretty much a wolf dog in the way that they look, but they act way more like a German Shepherd. So you're actually able to sometimes walk them off of a leash and they'll follow you everywhere, because Blue Bay Shepherds are pretty much dogs, but they're considered low content wolf dogs in a sense because they still are pretty wolfy with their mannerisms, but way closer to a dog and way easier to have inside of a home. I've been around a few Blue Bay Shepherds, but I've never actually owned one myself. And yes, you're correct, Kendra. It is actually illegal in some states. There are states that do not allow you to have wolf dogs at all. Some states will gauge it depending on the amount of percentage of wolf that's in the animal. And before, it used to always go by, low content, mid content, high content, and there's all the little in-betweens that people have come up with. But getting a high content animal is pretty much like owning a wolf exactly without it having any dog in it. A low content is more like owning a dog with some wolfy mannerisms. So some states will say that after a certain percentage, it is now considered a wild animal and you can't own it as a pet. So some states will say if it is over this percentage, you need to get a permit. And then there are other states that just don't really care, and they think wolf dogs are just like any other dog, and some of them are. Some of them just act like dogs, and you bring them home, and as long as you are pretty responsible with them, they don't really care. They will treat them just the same as like a lot of these places. You'll see people, banning pit bulls and all these other breeds, but I think personally it's pretty stupid because I've seen plenty of pit bulls that are extremely sweet. And it's usually the owner's fault for not properly raising the animal and having it learn the behaviors that make it a good dog to live with humans, not attacking people, not chasing people, stuff like that, the basics. And some people want their dogs to be attack dogs or fighting dogs. And then it causes all of these issues where you have all these laws put in place because people are being irresponsible with the animal. So with wolf dogs, it's the same thing. They don't want certain people, there's a fly. They don't want certain people getting them and being incredibly irresponsible. And so some places completely avoid it by just saying, screw it, you need a permit or you just don't get one at all. Dogs are better than kids in my opinion. Yeah, Jacob, I agree with that personally, but I guess that's just an opinion, right? Fennec Tail, you say in your country you can't even have any wild animal. Yeah, a lot of countries actually outlaw having a wild animal as a pet altogether. And I think that, that's for the right reasons, like you don't want people just going out and catching wild animals and keeping them as pets. So it's good to have those laws in place because a lot of the people who do that don't actually know what they're doing. They don't actually have the experience. So then the animal ends up dying or they let it back out into the wild and it causes problems. Like people who have large snakes, even in Florida, they have this problem now. People who had large snakes would let them go once they got too big. And now they're taking over and killing all of the animals that live inside of that ecosystem. So all of Florida's natural wildlife is now being murdered by animals that were exotic pets at one point that were irresponsibly just let go. Oh, okay, so if they're not an actual breed and you don't get a pedigree, how do you know you're actually getting what you paid for? And how do you prevent genetical illnesses? Okay, so Fancy Dog Lady, one of the, thanks for the question. That's actually a really good question. There are tons of breeders out there who will tell you they are selling you a wolf dog when in fact they are just selling you a husky or a Malamute. One of the things that you'll get from having the experience of working with these animals is you'll be able to tell them apart from dogs instantly. If you're new to this and you've never worked with wolf dogs before, there are a lot of features of a wolf dog that differentiate it from an actual dog. I can look at a German Shepherd Husky mix and tell you that's not a wolf dog. And people will look at that and say that's a wolf. There's even Malamutes that people look at and say that's a wolf. And it's just because they don't know any better. They don't know the signs to look for, right? So how do you know whether or not you're getting scammed? If you have the experience previously working with them, you'll know right away because you'll see the animal, you'll see the parents of the animal, and you'll know whether or not that's the animal that you want to get. But if you go into it without the experience and you're looking to adopt one, a lot of people will tell you that they have, oh, this is a 90%, you know, whatever, wolf. You know, they come up with all these different names. This is 75 timber wolf. This one's 5% red wolf, and, you know, 20% husky, and whatever. They give you all these percentages to try to tell you they're 90% wolf. It's always 90 or 70 or 80, like always a high number that they give you. But these percentages are pretty much bullshit. Don't believe them at all. I would suggest that if you're looking to get a wolf dog and you're really ready for it, and you're still having a hard time differentiating between the way they look, join one of these forums I mentioned earlier. Take pictures of the parents of the dog, show it to people who have the experience, and have them do what's called a phenotype, where you're basically just looking at the animal and looking for specific features that will tell you whether or not it has wolf in that animal and how much wolf. So the other option is to get, there's an Embark test. I think that's the name of the company, is Embark. Let me look. Yeah, if you go to embarkvet.com, they actually do DNA tests on dogs. So if you already have a dog that you think has wolf in it, you can easily send out a DNA test. I think it's like $200 though. I'm not sure. It's pretty pricey. But if you really want to know if there's wolf in the animal, you take a DNA test and you check whether or not there's actually wolf in the animal. I haven't done one yet for Luna, but as soon as I am making enough revenue for my channel to kind of warrant just doing that for the channel, I will make a whole video on it. I'm actually very curious to know if Luna has any wolf at all, right? I have pictures of the parents, but I never saw any DNA records on the parents, and most of the time you won't. If you go to a reputable breeder, though, nowadays, they're going to have the Embark test done, especially for wolf dogs. Because there's so many scammers out there, a lot of the people who breed wolf dogs at this point have been getting the tests, so they know exactly the percentage of wolf and other mixes that are in there. And that brings me up to the other part of your question, which is, you know, how can you avoid, what was it, the inbreeding? Oh yeah, how do you prevent genetical issues? So genetic issues, that's something that you can prevent by doing these tests that show any markers for pre-existing things that might pop up later, and making sure that any of the actual hold on. There we go. Any of the actual animals that you breed them back to don't have any of these issues, you know, like that the parents didn't have these issues. So if you find out like the parent of one of these animals that you're using for breeding has, you know, some kind of genetic issue, then you're going to want to start breeding in other, what's it called? Other, like from other animals, so that you can get a better mix in there of genetics. Now, I'm not like really huge on genetics. I've never fully studied it. I know very little about it. I know just enough to understand it, but not enough to actually, like I've never actually bred animals to the point where I was hand selecting them based on their genetics and any previous issues that they might have. But breeders know about this stuff. So you can ask the breeder, like, you know, do the parents have any of these specific issues? And then you'll get a better idea. You'll find out how long the grandparents lived. Like, for example, the Wolfdog breeder that Luna came from, she has records dating back past 20 years of the grandparents and cousins and brothers and sisters of all the Wolfdogs in her line. So she knows exactly later on in, you know, 15 years or so, if this animal starts having an issue, most of the time she's going to hear about it because, you know, either the person who adopted the animal from her will let her know, or if she has the animal in her possession, she'll know, you know, if it's one of her breeder animals. So that's a really good question. But genetic issues, that's what you have? You have genetic issues? Are you inbred? No, I'm just kidding. They don't just come from inbreeding. But like you'll see with German Shepherds are known to have bad hips when they get older, and this is something you don't see as often with an animal like a Wolfdog because they just have better genes, right? Well, animals in the wild, they don't have all of these issues that are kind of man-made, like some of the hip issues that will come in some dog breeds are because, or let me give this example. This might be better. Like a Great Dane. Great Danes or even large people are known to have heart issues and not live as long as others because they're bred to be these like big, massive animals. I'm talking about the German Shepherds, not the humans, but Great Danes. Great Danes are bred to be these huge animals, and their bodies can't really take it after a certain amount of time. But with wild animals, if they have these genetic issues, they're not going to live very long in the wild. So the ones that end up surviving and making it have, usually the best of the best when it comes to being genetically without any issues. And when you talk about wolves being bred back into dogs, a lot of these issues that comes from just dogs being a man-made thing are kind of bred out of it because the wolf genes come in and give it, a better support with the bone structure or the muscle structure or anything like that. Dogs should be handled and socialized from birth. Yes, I agree with that. And like I mentioned previously in the video, that, with Wolfdogs it's a little different because they get tamed to a certain point when they're puppies and within their first year. Like I used to have Luna around all sorts of dogs and cats and other animals, but once her instincts kicked in and she reached full maturity, I can't trust her alone with other animals. I just can't. She'll end up going after them. So even though she grew up and she was socialized with other animals, the wild part of her won't allow her to be anything less than a wolf. Like when it comes to acting like a wild animal, she's going to act like a wild animal. If I got a Wolfdog pup, do I think Luna would be okay with it? I think I could get Luna to end up being okay with it over time, but like if I brought a newborn puppy into the house and I just put it down on the ground, I think she would kill it. Not on purpose, but either stepping on it or mouthing it too much to the point where she ends up accidentally hurting it. Or she might actually try to eat it, thinking that it's food, depending on how it moves. Like any animal that runs that small, she's going to go after. And when she catches it, her first instinct is to shake it. And as soon as she shakes it, it's going to end up either breaking its neck or hurting it in some way. So even socialized animals, you can get them to get along with new animals that you bring in, but it's going to be a lot of work. I couldn't just bring in a new cat, for example. If I bring in a new cat, she's going to want to eat it. Is it true that Homo sapiens were successful in hunting and surviving because of wolf dogs and proto-dogs? Now, I don't know if... I wouldn't say that that's the sole reason, right? I think, honestly, humans realizing how to create fire and tools were really what ended up getting humans to survive, as long as we have. Because with wolves being taken in as pets, that predates, all of us. Hundreds and thousands of years back, people were taking in wolves and trying to create them. That's how we got dogs, right? But I don't know, man. Like, I don't think that's the sole reason. I think they came into play to help humans a lot as a tool. So that would fall into the whole like humans creating tools, right? Because humans kind of created dogs. So having an animal that could go help you hunt and retrieve your hunt was a big thing. Even getting packs of dogs to help sniff, to find food, that was a big thing. Wolves and wolf dogs have such great noses that they could find anything. Like look at dogs like German Shepherds, right? They use them as drug dogs mostly because they can smell things very, very well, and even when you tried to hide the smell, they can usually find it. So they are one of the breeds that are closest to wolves, right? When it comes to genetics. So they come in as a tool and have helped humans, but I don't think that they were the sole reason, though, in my opinion. Is Luna spayed? No, she's actually not. Now, I plan on doing it at some point, but I don't know. Like, now she's so much older. She's 5 years old. It's like I feel so bad about having her put under to go through this surgery, and it's going to be even harder for her because she, you know, she's going to want to rip at the stitches and all that kind of stuff. She's not going to be okay with wearing a cone around her head. So these things make it a lot more difficult for me to make the decision to just go out and get her spayed. But I do want to end up doing it. I don't really plan on breeding her. When I originally got her, I thought maybe in the future I might want to do that. But I think there's enough wolf dogs around. I don't think that it's necessary for me to breed wolf dogs. There are many great breeders out there who know way more than I do, that have amazing animals, that I don't think that it's just necessary. And the fact that there's not that many people who properly take care of them, you know, that makes it a problem too. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to sit here and sift through who's going to be the right home for one of Luna's babies. Do you know how difficult that would be for me to try to get rid of one of her babies? Like, she means everything to me, that it would be very difficult to not be immediately attached to any newborns. Trey, oh no, that not the cone of shame. Yeah, when she was a puppy, we used to bring her to a place where, do you guys know Victoria Stilwell? She's on the Animal Planet. I think she's like British or from the UK, that or something, that she's like very, very stern, and she tells people how to properly take care of their pets. Well, one of my old friends from high school, middle school days, she ended up opening up a school in Davie, Florida with Victoria Stilwell. That's like a training school for dogs. It's like called the Training Academy of South Florida or something like that. And I used to bring Luna there when she was a puppy because I wanted to get her completely trained, you know, to to be around other people and other dogs and all of that. I didn't want her to be a wolf dog that went after other animals. But, you know, I learned you can't really take that out of them as easy as I thought it would be. Because I had always worked with them, but I never actually owned one, you know, as like a puppy, and then raised it and trained it and everything else. So this was my first time actually getting into that. And they put the cone of shame around her neck. It's one of the things in training that they go through there, to teach your dog that if it has to wear one, it's okay for it not to be super scared. So as a puppy, we used to put the cone of shame on her just so that she could be okay with it. And then, you know, while she's wearing it, we would give her treats. So she would associate with putting it on with getting treats. But again, when her instincts kicked in and she got older, all of this changed. So it became a lot harder to put anything on her that she's not okay with. Actually, I think I might have a couple of the pictures here from when I was there. Let me see if I can pull one of them here to show you. Because I had like a whole series and a whole folder of just a bunch of pictures of her as a puppy. Well, first of all, I'll show you how cute she was. This is what she looked like when we first got her. So there's a picture of her around the time when I first brought her home. She was maybe 3 weeks old there, maybe 4 weeks, I want to say. I don't know, super, super young. And then, you know, like I said, I used to bring her to the dog park all the time. And here's her playing with American Bulldog, and that's actually a pug. So you can see how small she was. This was when she was about a month old, maybe. And she's about a little bit taller already than a pug. I used to have to bring her to the small side of the dog park, like where all the 30 pounds and under dogs were. That was really fun. All the people would look at me like I was crazy because they were like, that's not a German Shepherd. And I always tried to pass her off as a German Shepherd, and people would call me out. But she was really good as a puppy. So anyway, the school that I was telling you about, let me find a good picture here. I don't even know. Oh, that was her playing with like an Australian Shepherd or something at the school. So they used to, yeah, they had all these toys and everything that they would set up, and they had different classes, and the dogs would have to like go up ramps and down ramps, and you know, just basically teach them to interact with a bunch of these things. But oh yeah, like you're saying, Fancy Dog Lady, isn't that too early to take her home? With wolf dogs, it's not. Wolf dogs actually grow at a really, really fast rate. If you think about it, like a wolf in the wild wouldn't make it very long if they stayed a puppy for too long. So most wild animals, they actually grow a lot quicker. So with a wolf dog, was it within about 3 months, she was already about the size of a small German Shepherd. Within 3 months old, I was already starting to bring her into the large dog side. And like I was mentioning before too, they have to imprint on you as early as possible. So it is pretty early to take them home, but I knew what I was doing. I already had experience with young animals like this and stuff, so the breeder trusted me to take her home because she knew that I could handle it. But for most people, they might hold on to them a little bit longer, but they will interact with them the whole time. You'll see that the breeders will do a lot more work. I forget what these dogs are called. This dog used to play with Luna all the time. It's like, I think it was called like an Afghan something. Afghan hound, is that what it is? I forget what this is called. Let me look it up. Maybe it was like an Afghan hound mix or something? I don't know. I forget what kind of dog that was. Or maybe it was like an Australian something. But anyway, here's Luna again. Small little puppy Luna running around at the dog park. Look at that face. Look how goofy she looks. Running at the camera. She was so goofy at that size too, because her paws were so big, she would trip over herself all the time, and she would just walk around like incredibly goofy. But yeah. See, look how pretty she was. Even only at like, I don't know, maybe a couple months old there. And she was already the size of, like almost the size of a small German Shepherd there. But she was still like acting like a newborn puppy, you know, tripping over herself and being incredibly clumsy and everything else that comes along with it. Here's another, let me find it, a good picture here. Yeah, that was her at the school. So you see, we used to let her loose with all these other dogs, and she would just, at the end of the class, like, they would have playtime, so they would let everybody, you know, just have their dogs all together, just playing and running around, doing whatever they want, going crazy. That was actually really fun. And then the other benefit to this part of the class, too, was if Luna would go up to strangers, they would pet her and be friendly with her and get her used to actually being around other people and not scared of people, you know? So this is like, it was like perfect for puppy class, you know? And then, like, here's a photo of her. She wasn't even a year old yet. She was already starting to get pretty big. She was maybe like, what, 7 months old here? A lot of these pictures are kind of blurry because I never used them, but no, Photoshop, we don't want you open right now. Go away, Photoshop. Yeah, but look at that. I mean, that's like a 7-month-old animal. So you got to imagine, like I said, they grow really quick. Here she comes stumbling. I hear her big feet coming up the stairs. And like, remember I was telling you guys about the destruction, and that was a bed that I paid, I want to say like $80 for, and it had that Temperament stuff on the inside, super comfortable. I would even lay on that and sleep myself. It took her all of about 10 minutes of me like going into the bathroom after I gave it to her for her to just rip it apart. Yeah, she didn't really care. Anything that you buy, that you would buy for her like that, she wouldn't use it as a bed. She wanted to just destroy it, rip it up to pieces and everything else. You can kind of get an idea here too how big she is when she was right next to me. I mean, look at the size of her head in comparison to mine there. I had this table too that she used to sit on all the time, and it was like a little coffee table from IKEA, and she just made it like her spot, and every time she just felt like it, she would be laying on it in the middle of the living room. And she was only a few months old here too. She wasn't even a year old yet. Yeah, this was the first time that she had ripped up the couch. This wasn't even the picture in the thumbnail. So I had already taken this part out of the couch and threw it out. And another day she ripped out the rest of it, which was that picture in the thumbnail where she's like got it all exploded around her. This happened when we went outside for 5 minutes to walk somebody out to their car, and she was freaking out inside that she couldn't come outside too, and decided to just rip apart the bed. So as soon as we came back inside, or not the bed, the couch, as soon as we came back inside, it was like this. So the only thing left to do at that point is just laugh and take a photo, because I mean, what are you gonna do? It's already destroyed, right? It was a really beautiful leather couch too. But this is something you have to get used to when you live with a wolf dog. You just kind of get used to the fact that they're going to destroy things, and that's that. That's why I said you can't be a very materialistic person, because you're going to have a very hard time living with one otherwise. Yeah, so this is what she was looking like at the dog park when I was trying to pass her off as a German Shepherd to everybody. I remember there was one day where a cop came up to me, and the cop was like, "What kind of dog is that?" I'm like, "A German Shepherd." And he's like, "Mixed with what?" I'm like, "Husky." As I'm walking away, I'm like yelling, "Husky, Malamute." And I just started walking the opposite way. And I went to the other side of the park because I was like, at the time, I was more worried about him kicking me out because there was a wolf in with dogs. Because, you know, if you tell somebody who doesn't know about wolf dogs that it's a wolf dog, they're going to all of a sudden think the worst. They're going to think like, oh, this animal is going to come in here and spread rabies or whatever, you know. But she actually got along with the other dogs, and she ran around with them and played with them and everything. So it wasn't that big of a deal. See, look, here she was just hanging out with a boxer that she had just got done running around with and playing with. So it's her little buddies at the park. Oh my god. Look at that jowler pick. Look at that dog. Is that a... What is that? And what is that other one in the back? Is that like a golden retriever poodle mix or something? Some kind of lab German Shepherd poodle mix? I don't know. What the hell is that? I can't even tell what that is. How do you find and convince someone to let you work with exotic pets so that you can learn? I started out by actually getting myself a job at an exotic pet store. I went to a local pet shop that I went to purchase my animals from and the food for my animals, and I asked them if I could have a job. Now, when I started working with them, I was in my earlier teens, like 15 years old. So I had to just clean the glass, change water bowls out, clean the poop, all the basics that most people don't want to do. But that's how you start, right? And after years of doing that, they started saying, well, it wasn't like years of cleaning, but after months of being there and they started trusting me with the animals, they would say, here, why don't you go feed these animals? Why don't you go bring them some food? And they would let me work with the animals that were easier to deal with. And then I would go from there. They would start saying, oh, well, now you can help the customers. Can you go grab that animal? They want to buy it. And then I would help bag the animal. I learned how to, that taught me how to actually interact with the animals so that I wasn't getting bit all the time. And I, went from there. And then other people will also go to like sanctuaries or rehabilitation centers for animals, ask for a job there. You can become a vet tech if you're into that side of it. Work at like an exotic pet vet office, and then you get the opportunity to actually work with some of these animals. Even if you're just working at the front desk, you'll have people coming in bringing these animals, and you'll get to interact with them and learn a little bit about them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can really get into it. If it's Wolfdogs that you want to get into working with, I would suggest going to like some rehab place that has Wolfdogs. Ask them if you can help walk them, take them out, and feed them and everything else. So that'll at least get your foot in the door. It's not going to be pretty at first. It's going to be all the hard labor type work. You might not even get to actually be with the animals, but over time, you'll get that experience. But you kind of have to prove yourself as well, because if you're somebody who's really shy and timid around animals, you're going to have animals that don't listen to you, that you're going to have a really hard time handling. So that's why I wouldn't suggest just going out and getting a wild animal like this as a pet. Okay, I got to move this picture because this is just going to make me keep laughing in my head and losing my train of thought. Look at that picture though. She really is a beautiful animal. I mean, I love photographing her. And that's another thing I learned, working with animals, is I started doing like all the web sales stuff for the exotic pets. So if somebody wanted to buy like a snake online, they could. And I would help the company upload all of the snakes. So I started to learn how to take pictures. And actually, check this out. This wasn't the first camera that I used, but this is one of the first cameras that I used. This is one of the cameras that I learned how to take pictures of animals with. It's actually a Sony Mavica. This was one of the CD cameras where on the back here, look, it actually took a CD. So if you wanted to take pictures, you had to buy all these rewritable CDs. This one's 210 megabytes worth of data. It's a whole lot, right? Our phones hold way more than that. So I used to just go up to the glass and take little pictures of these snakes, and I used to use the top flash because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And then I would take the pictures back into Photoshop and edit them and crop them and upload them. So in doing that, just photographing the animals, I learned how to become a photographer, for one. Doing it in a more professional capacity, I started having to learn about lighting and the camera settings and everything, because I realized that taking all the pictures of these animals in auto mode with the flash was horrible. So I started learning how to interact with animals to get them to pose for photos by actually doing it. So if you want to learn to work with exotic pets, or even just Wolfdogs in general, I would suggest getting a job, some sort of a job, or volunteer your time to help a place that has the animals you want to work with. So I'm going to get going and end the stream. This has already been like a 2-hour stream. So yeah, what is it? About 10 minutes. That will be 2 hours that we talked about Wolfdogs. How crazy is that? I have some really cool pictures too of like when we were hiking and stuff. going to the top of mountains with her like I was telling you guys. A ton of videos on my channel, so if you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed and that you hit that bell button on the channel so you can check out whenever I upload a new video or live stream. I do want to do more of these streams where we talk about specific animals. I was thinking maybe I can even bring a couple on camera, other species, and we can just talk about them like this in this capacity. You guys can ask questions. We can, you know, anything that you're interested in about that you want to learn based on my experience. And remember, everything I talk about in these videos are based on my experience. I might not be 100% right on everything, but it's what worked for me and how I've interacted with these animals growing up. Because like I said, I started working with them when I was like 15 years old, so it's been a long time. Look at that. How cute is that? Giving me paw. Oh, look, there she goes wearing the GoPro harness in this picture too. That's another thing I got to do more of, man. I miss just going out with her to like random mountains and stuff to let her go hiking in with the GoPro on. But the problem is that harness really isn't made for a dog built like Luna. So every time the harness is on her and the GoPro's on top, it falls over to the side. And as I'm hiking, I constantly have to readjust it. So it makes it kind of more of a pain in the ass than anything to work with. There you can kind of get an idea how tall she is when she's standing up. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Jake. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I hope you guys really did enjoy this video. And as I was saying, subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to be trying to do more videos like these. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, because that'll help my channel as well. And let's see if we can pull up a couple of last pictures here to show you guys. And I'll put some music in here. We can play maybe for the outro or something. I don't know. What else? There's got to be some other really cool pictures here that are probably totally worth showing you guys, because I have a whole folder full of all sorts of awesome shots. And I want to start putting some more prints up too, and I definitely have to put some up of Scout, because I haven't put any up of him.
Luna, hard.
Aw, Jeanette, thank you. I do also have the bully make box that I got for Luna, so pretty soon we'll end up having to open that up on stream, or maybe I'll just do another video where I show you guys her opening her new treats that she got from Bully Make. So any of you guys who, I don't have to mention this, but I just do, because if you guys end up getting a Bully Make box, it helps my channel as well. So if you want to get one for your dogs, you just use the coupon code THEDRO with no space, no underscore, just THEDRO, and you'll get money off of your first package from Bully Make. So they end up giving me a small percentage of that. And Luna definitely loves them, so I figured why not share it with you guys. I did see a couple of you actually went out and got the Bully Make box, so thank you so much. Another thing I wanted to mention before I go is the Patreon account. For those of you who are signed up, I really appreciate it. And I have the link down below there on the footer of the stream where my Patreon is. Every month I choose somebody from my Patreon account. It doesn't matter if you're just donating $1 a month or if it's one of the higher tiers. I pick everybody randomly. So every month I pick one person to win a merch item from my online store at thedro.com. So last month I did a photo. So Alex, congrats, you won the cemetery photo that I printed, and I already sent that one out for you. And I have all these other prints, you know, of Luna and new ones that I'm going to be posting. But this month, we're going to choose somebody and do a t-shirt. So somebody this month's going to win a free t-shirt. But you have to be somebody who's subscribed to my YouTube channel and that you also are part of the Patreon account. Fancy Dog Lady, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Oh, and Alex, if you're watching this still, you're gonna have to take a picture when you get it in the mail, because I really want to see a picture of you with the cemetery photo print. Oh my god, look at that derpy face. Here's one of the mountains I climbed with Luna, and we ended up going all the way up to the top, and there was a little section with all these extra rocks on top of the mountain, so I climbed up with her on that to get a couple of cool pictures. You can see here that it's overlooking like all of Colorado. I think that might have been Golden that we were overlooking. I'm not sure. But yeah, she loves doing this kind of stuff. Now, when I go hiking with her, a lot of times I take her into the woods. So I got to shoot some new videos with her, some new hiking videos. We're going to do that very soon, especially now that I have the drone too. Like, my brother let me borrow the DJI Phantom. So I've been getting some really good footage. I wanted to ask you guys too, before I go. I have video from when I went to Colorado to go pick up all my stuff, like all my base cabs and everything that are behind me. I'm gonna remove a bunch of that video because, you know, there's things that I don't want to really relive from my past. So I can edit that video and put it online and make it like a new episode without all that bad shit that I don't want in there. I've been holding on to all that footage and not wanting to post it because there's so much stuff that I just don't want to put out there anymore. And if I cut all that stuff out of the footage, we're going to have an episode where I should just show a little bit of travel time and me driving, like driving through the mountains and all of that. And then there's some footage of me on the airplane, and then there's footage of me coming back home to show you how Luna and Scout both interacted with me when I came home. Because I would basically wanted to show you guys what it's like when I go out of town and then come back, and how they act with me. You know how your pets, they're like in love with you, so they come running to the door when they see you, and they're so happy that you've been back from like a vacation. So I kind of wanted to show that. And because all of that footage was captured with all the bad shit, I'm just going to cut out all of the bad stuff, and I'll upload that video if you guys are interested in seeing it. It's just like a video of, like I said, Scout eating and Luna being all excited at me coming home. And of course she did destroy something while I was gone. But maybe I'll post that up for you guys so that you can see. I'll just delete all the bad stuff and we don't have to worry about that. Let me see if there is anything else wanted to show you guys or touch on. There are just so many photos that I have in these folders that it's like next to impossible for me to just edit them all. I would have to go through them for like a month before, because I want to put out a book. Like, I want to actually put out a coffee table book with all the animals in it and all of the awesome photos that I've taken of even wild animals. But in order for me to do that, I got to go through a ton of photos. I got to edit them. I got to come up with a bunch of text. So it's going to be a lot of work, but I think it would be really awesome once I'm done with it. Okay, I think that's about it. Let's see, there's... What is this? Oh, I went to Garden of the Gods with Luna. Look at that photo. How badass is that? Alright guys, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys sticking around and watching this 2-hour-long live stream about Wolfdogs. Like I said, I hope I've answered all of your questions and everything. If there's anything else that you want to know about them, feel free to hit me up through any of the social networks. I'm on whatever, all of them. All of my links are down in the description below. And if you have anything specific that I didn't touch on, you can just leave it in the comments. I'll try to answer you. I'll try to get to it. I'm going to make this whole stream public, and hopefully I can help other people figure out what it's really like and what you should really be prepared for. The one thing I didn't mention and I didn't touch on and is exactly how to find the right breeder, because I think that's a little bit subjective. But if you're looking for a breeder for a wolf dog, if you don't contact me privately, then the best way to do it is to actually look online, join these forums I was talking about, and get the opinions of a lot of different people. And if you start hearing the same name come up as somebody being reputable, maybe take a look at their animals and see why they're being considered so reputable. But I'm not going to give any names out, so don't ask me where I got Luna from, or who I got her from, or who you can get a wolf dog from, because I feel like I'm going to be adding to the problem if I'm just telling everybody where to go get one, because they're going to jump past all of the things I mentioned before. And just because they might have money, a breeder might sell them a wolf dog, and then you're going to have an animal that, you know, gives everybody a bad name. So do the right thing. Hopefully I've helped, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Bye.